Hello, my name is Dan McDuff, and this is my in-depth analysis of the opening sequence to the film Tron Legacy. So first, when you look at the mise-en-scène, my first point is also to do with editing, and that is before the sequence starts, Disney takes the digital theme of this sequence and uses it to create its ident in an original way which fits the theme of the film. This not only shows an enormous budget, but also links to and displays the theme of the film before the film has even started. The ident itself looks like a CPU rendering the framework of the ident of a 3D modelling program, just with extra blue glow. The film starts with an image of a digital grid, which hits just as the narrator says, grid. Blue glowing lines flow through this grid, slowly building up more and more to make a city. They also flow together like a network or computer-wise in a chipset. This is a clear indication that this film is going to have something to do with computers and data. It also looks absolutely stunning and captures the audience's attention, mesmerising them with these beautiful images. The network of lines fades/flows into an American skyscraper city, although we are not given an indication of which one. This represents that the network is part of or makes up the city. There's even the added detail of one of the network lines becoming a car. This represents that the network is everything and suggests that this film might have something to do with the network being or controlling the entire city. We are then shown the title of the film, which is in the same style as the grid, and establishes that the grid is incorporated within the real world. It conveys an idea that they are two separate existences living in the same three dimensions of space. The idea suggests that the title is actually there, and whilst the camera can see it, the city can't. The camera continues to fly through the city, showing off many lights turned on in the night environment, suggesting that these lights are where the lines of this network are leading to. This creates a visual representation of how the grid interlinks with the real world, as they presumably do. The sequence ends and flows into the actual film just as we reach the house of the main character, displaying what and where the house is and shows the audience where they are relative to the setting of the film, which is likely the space of the grid/city. The house is fairly modern looking, however the film is set in 1989. This suggests that the family living there are rich, which they could be if one of the family members worked with the grid for a living. Lastly, we see a motorbike outside the house, which ties in with the iconic Tron grid motorbikes that everyone seems to know about. For example, I've never seen the film, but I know that Tron has those weird motorbike things. So now we can move on to cinematography. The entire shot is one continuous shot, which is representative of the way a computer program compiles all of its data into one continuous script when running. It gives us one continuous shot of the grid and city, which captures the enormity of the grid and also represents how they fill the same space. It gives us an establishing shot of both settings of the film, and the aerial shot makes the audience feel more detached from the city, and almost like they're more like a part of the grid, which suggests that the grid is going to be where most of the film takes place. The camera is quite far from the city when it's flying along, which means that we don't see many details of the city. However, due to the nature of the way the grid is laid out, we can see all of the detail of the grid. This puts more of a focus and emphasis on the grid, and makes the audience want to see more of the grid than the city. This suggests that the grid is an area people want, and suggests a storyline where the antagonist looks to take over the grid for personal gain, which would conventionally fit the style of this sort of film. The shot pans sideways next to view the title, and the audience views the scene parallel to the floor. This also makes the audience feel detached from the city and more like part of the grid, or even another entity, just as humans are a separate entity to the data compilation of a PC program. This is kind of like reversing roles. The audience feels more like they're part of the network than the real life scenes, rather than the other way round. So the camera flies through the title, getting it out of frame and once again making the audience feel detached from what's happening around them. It also rotates to being faced the right way up so it can quickly flow into the film and be at the right orientation. This also allows the audience to get more of a normal view of the beautiful nightlife of the city, suggesting that this film is going to be made to look as good as possible, which would also make sense due to the fact that you're going to have the blue Tron lines flowing everywhere. The final part of the sequence is another establishing shot, this time at the main character's house. There are three establishing parts of this one motion shot, and it allows the audience to be immersed in and completely know the setting and surroundings. So despite the fact that there is a lot of editing obviously put into this, because the way the editing is all kind of drawn into one and it is all very nicely fluent, there's not huge amounts to say about it. However, pretty much the entire sequence is edited, despite the fact that the film is supposed to be set in a real-life world with real-life people. This portrays that the characters are going to be in another reality, which would obviously be the grid. Considering what the opening shot alone looks like, we see the amount of editing that needs to be put into this film, and we can conclude that the budget for this film was large, and most of it was probably spent on the editing. The network lines in this opening sequence form together to make a grid of a city then fade into an actual aerial shot of a city, which lines then retract from. This is all very fluent, and the editing shows a flawless interlink between the grid and the city, and portrays the integration between them. Then we see the film logo, which is placed alongside the side of a building. The film incorporates the environment into the placement of the logo, and therefore sets the main theme and main colour theme of the film. When we look at the sound, the track is narrated over by the main character. Due to the fact that the audience and main character are both separated from the shots we're viewing, the audience feels more of a connection to the main character. The underlying music is sort of an 80s style electronic track which associates the audience to the time in which the production is set. One of the lines is, "I kept dreaming of a world I thought I'd never see," and this shows the character's passion for the grid and shows the audience that he is likely a good guy. As the logo is displayed, the soundtrack climaxes. It shows that the film is going to be amazing due to the energy that's built up, and it makes the title seem epic and dominates the attention of the audience. Another thing with the editing of the sequence is right at the very end, before it goes into the actual film, a little piece of text comes up saying 1989, and that gives you an idea of the time setting of the film.